From Ruinous Media and KAOS 89.3 FM in Olympia, I'm Mark Lee Morrison, and this is Low Profile. On today's show, I'm talking with Daniel Smith of the band Danielson, a project he started with his siblings to satisfy a requirement for his senior thesis 3 decades ago. If you're not familiar with Danielson, one thing you'll notice throughout today's show is that nobody else sounds anything like them. Daniel and I are talking today about the 30-year evolution of the group, why he sings the way he does, his visual art, producing records for other people, including friends of the show Soul Junk, Hermit Thrushes, and collaborations with people like Half-Handed Cloud, Kramer, Jad Fair, and Steve Albini, who we tragically lost just a few days ago. What we're hearing right now in the background is the song Heads in the Clouds from Danielson's first album, A Prayer for Every Hour. I recommend the music video if you haven't seen it. Low Profile is listener supported, so if you enjoy listening to this show, go to patreon.com/lowprofile. You can sign up for flexible monthly donations. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you. And now today's show. Daniel, thank you so much for joining me. I've been a big fan of Danielson ever since I first discovered your music, which was right at the beginning. So I've been along for the whole ride.
Wow. Very cool.
You know, I first found out about you through the Tooth and Nail Records paper catalog. I was flipping through it, and mostly a bunch of write-ups about like kind of pop punk bands and things like that. And then it was a little bit misleading. I think the write-up, the bio, likened you to Beck or Ween, which gave me the impression that it was going to be maybe not very sincere or satirical.
Yeah, that's back when it was, recommended if you like RIYLs.
Yeah. But also it quoted you as saying, Sonic Youth was my Beatles. I don't know if you recall saying something like that, but...
I was probably misquoted.
Uh-huh.
The Beatles were my Beatles, of course, as that's the music I listened to when I was, 5. But Sonic Youth in high school in, late 80s it really did change my brain a bit of like, what am I listening to with just the way they approached electric guitars was nothing I'd ever heard before.
Well, I mean, I could say the same thing about you. I mostly listened to stuff you could buy at a Bible store in my youth. This was something that was just really intriguing and just worlds away from what I'd heard. I think I got a VHS cassette that had your Heads in the Clouds video, and that was the first taste I had. And then I happened to be at a concert in Ska-Mania, Washington, when you were touring for your second record, and I went kind of expecting, like, I don't know if this is like a gimmicky thing or what, but I know it's going to be interesting. And I got there, sure enough, I didn't know what to expect. You and a bunch of your siblings just all wearing these custom-made nurse outfits and making some of the heaviest, like, hard-hitting sounds I'd ever heard. And I just, like, it warped me, I think.
I'm sorry.
It was like, this is what I'm into. Now what am I supposed to listen to? Where do I go from here?
Was that Tom Fest?
Yeah, that was Tom Fest. I'm guessing 97 or 98.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, it was amazing.
I think that's the only time I've ever actually met you. Briefly afterwards, while y'all were loading the van, I think I grabbed a merchandise box. And I actually, right in front of me, I have the Tell Another Joke at the old chopping block, the old double 10-inch original issue here.
Yeah, brown vinyl, I believe.
Brown vinyl, tree trunk vinyl.
That's right. I will say the reissue sounds a lot better.
I believe that.
But it's cool that Tooth and Nail they were willing to put out a double 10-inch. That was cool.
Yeah, did they approach you about that?
They had put a couple records out that I had heard when at the time so this is 95.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Chicago at this commune called Jesus People USA. They put on Cornerstone Festival. I was living there for 6 months after I finished art school, and I was just I had finished the Prayer for Every Hour album, just mixed it to a bunch of cassettes and handmade, made a bunch of them. And I just kind of waited to send them out to labels because that was my goal for sure. But when I was living in Chicago at Jesus People, I was introduced to some of this new, I guess at the time, it was indie Christian music or whatever. And I, in general, didn't listen to Christian music, since I was 12 or something, when I was kind of forced to for a bit. But I thought Javelina was cool. I thought Starflyer was cool. I thought Joy Electric was cool.
True.
And so I was impressed. They sounded good. I mean, I was not interested in being on a Christian label, but I sent a copy to them, sent a copy to Shrimper, which was one of my favorite labels, Homestead, Drag City. But I didn't hear back from any of those labels. I only heard back from Tooth and Nail, and Brandon, the owner, called me and said, "Who are you? What is this crazy thing you sent me?" and I was just laughing. I said, "That's my record. What do you think?" And I could hear all these people in the background just laughing like it was some big practical joke or something. I said, "No, it's not a joke. This is my music, I want somebody to put it out." And he said, "This is insane. We got to put this out." And you could hear everybody just laughing at the idea of putting Prayer for Every Hour record out.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, "Look, it's all cassette 4-track recordings, and I'm happy with how it sounds. I don't want to re-record it. So if you're up for putting it out as is, let's do it." And so, we figured out a 4-record deal. And so that was Prayer for Every Hour, Tell Another Joke of the Old Chopping Block, and then the Try Danielson Alpha and Omega.
Nice. And then you were released from the contract, and you have a record label. Is it still current? Sounds familiar?
Sounds Familiar is on hold right now. I'm trying to focus on Danielson and try to, that's certainly my first love, and how everything else kind of came from my music, and yet that's been on pause for way too long. So yeah, it's fun we're talking about it, because I'm very much, getting back into that headspace of writing new material and all. But so Sounds Familiar, I started that so I could put out the vinyl version of Try Danielson Alpha and Omega.
Oh, you did that yourself. Okay.
So that was the first release on Sounds Familiar, yeah.
I'm going to share with the listener Feeling Tank from the first album right here. I don't know. So there's some magic in that 4-track realm that I feel like is kind of hard to replicate.
Yeah, well, it's all I had. So you just you figure out how to record drums with 2 microphones being bussed into one channel, and then you put some guitars on channel 2, and then bounce them all over to channel 4, and then it opens up a couple more tracks.
So did the 4-track recordings dictate the live arrangements, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, the 4-track recordings, when I put all that together, so a couple of the tunes were kind of from my previous band, Sap Lassie, where I had introduced these new songs, and the band was kind of winding down, and so they supported me, drums and a second guitar, on a couple tunes. And then a lot of the other recordings were recorded in our basement with my siblings, who I was introducing these songs to in preparation for my senior thesis, which was, I went to Rutgers University up in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I went to the art school there, Mason Gross School of the Arts. And so, your final year is your thesis year, and you're supposed to figure out who you are as an artist and all this. Mm-hmm. And so, I was just on this spiritual quest. And a friend of mine and I went down to Howard Finster's Paradise Gardens in Georgia, because I became a huge fan of Howard Finster and his art. And I was changed forever, because I grew up learning about Jesus and having quiet internal communication with Jesus. And then, as I got older, I just cared more about myself and about being a teenager and then a college student. But by that final year in college, I just was on this search again for something that I felt like I was missing from my childhood. And so there was a lot of just spiritual interest, a lot of me going back home with my like hanging out with my parents and my siblings, because that was all part of it too, just reconnecting with them and collaborating on sculptures with my mom and my dad, like for my senior thesis. So I was teaching these songs to my siblings, and we ended up performing those at the senior thesis opening. And then on display were these sculptures that I was collaborating, like I said, with my parents. So it was all connected. And that ended up being kind of the debut of Danielson, that performance at the senior thesis. So that's when it became a band. But a lot of those recordings, like I said, were from rehearsals getting ready for that show, which they ended up being 4-track recordings that ended up being on that first album. After the album was done, and then we got more serious about playing out live, my friend Chris moved back to the area, and so we introduced him on keyboards. And my brothers both were marching band captains, so we had 2 drummers. My sister played glockenspiel in grade school, so she played Glock.
and continued to, right?
And continues to now, yeah. And so it's just whatever anybody was already playing and had laying around, and that became our sound. So we kind of stumbled over that, and we used old Farfisa organs, which is super influenced by B-52s and Stereolab, and of course a lot of 60s garage that had that those instruments on it. And so we really arranged those songs for live performance after that first record. And in that time period of arranging some of the songs from that record, I was also writing new songs. First time we went into the recording studio proper with the producer Kramer, who I was and still am a huge fan of. And so that was a dream, to go up to his studio up in North Jersey and record that album.
And you've got a new EP with Kramer and Jad Fair, who both of whom you've collaborated with in the past. Kramer, since the 90s.
Yeah.
Jad Fair, I know he's very special to you, and you've appreciated his work for a long time.
Yeah.
How did you first come to work with Kramer? And then is there a connection to Jad Fair there?
Well, there is, in the sense that Kramer and Jad, Kramer helped record some of the half Japanese records from the 80s. So they go way back. And then there's a fantastic collaboration between Kramer and Jad called Roll Out the Barrel, and that came out in the late 80s. And that album is just bonkers. It's so cool. And so I was a huge fan of that album. But I was a fan of most of what Kramer did, because Shimmy Discs was his label, and it's back happening again, which is awesome. But I was a huge fan of Shimmy Disc and Kramer's production on Galaxy 500, and the list goes on. So I somehow got his phone number and just called and left a message, and he called back and said, I think I sent him a CD. I sent him a copy of Prayer for Every Hour, and then said, we want to hire you to produce our next record. And so we set it up, and we drove up there, and we brought our trampoline with us, set it up in his yard, so when we were taking breaks, we could jump on the trampoline, and it was wild. And we recorded everything in 2 days, and he mixed it in 2 days, and the record was done in 4 days. It's all the budget we had, $2,000.
Hey. It's quite an accomplishment for just a couple days, too. I realize there's a lot of lead up, a lot of prep going into it as well.
Oh yeah, we did all the work in our basement.
Did you have the uniforms? You've had a bunch of different uniforms over the years?
Yes, the very first I guess it was a uniform. They were just white T-shirts we painted hearts on our sleeves and had our name on our chest, and we wore antennas. So that was our very first uniform. I think when we recorded Chopping Block, though, I think we actually did have our doctors and nurses uniforms, and we did wear those in the studio. Now that I'm thinking about it,
Antennas, is that like the heart-shaped blinders, or is it something different?
No, these were just antennas for like
insect antennas.
Yeah, exactly. Just to increase our feeling capabilities.
Okay. Did that work?
It looked silly, so that was part of the idea too. I don't know. I was just trying stuff.
So you're a big, like, multidisciplinary artist. I had your paper catalog of Great Comfort stuff that you sent out by mail in the 90s. I don't have it anymore, but I remember you commissioned John Fluvog to make some shoes.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's a wild move for an indie band. And you and your siblings made all kinds of crazy stuff. Textiles, quilting is it a thing?
Yeah.
Like, quilting, including your, fifth album is a quilt on the cover, is that right?
That is a quilt, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a collaboration between my mom and my wife and my sisters, and Chris and I made the drawings, and they hand stitched them. It was a ridiculous project, but we got it done in time somehow, and it turned out nice. That was for Fetch the Compass Kids. Yeah.
So do you feel like you've put your college degree to work?
I guess so. I mean, in the school I went to, they didn't promise any job. You're not going to get they came out and said it. You're not going to get a job with this art degree, but hopefully you'll learn how to be an artist and figure it out, So I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. It's a grind, but when it's working, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. Like, what was your primary focus?
Printmaking. So I got really into intaglio, which is etching into a zinc plate in an acid bath. And then eventually I got tired of the process. So I got into woodcut, and I just love how woodcuts were just immediate and raw. And I started doing a lot of woodcuts and printing them onto like handmade paper, and then sometimes attaching them to sculptures. So they're 3D prints in a sense,
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of what the 9-fruit tree that you sing from inside of.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, sometimes. It depends on the season. I've taken long breaks, but I've performed in that, I think, in the past year or two.
Okay. And it's like a collapsible tree, basically.
It is, yeah. It's made out of PVC pipe and fabric, and kind of fans open at the top, and the base is, it's freestanding. The whole idea was that it started with a drawing of a tree holding a guitar, and I thought it would be so cool if the tree can just hold the guitar, and then I walk out on stage and then just get inside of the tree and start playing. So that's what I made. There was 3 of them. The very first one was like 18 feet wide, and it took hours to set up, so it was not practical at all.
18 feet wide?
Yeah,
so you have to be in like a recital hall or something to pull it off.
Yeah.
Or a parking lot.
Or outdoor festivals or something. So that was short-lived. And then the second one that we did tour with quite a bit was made out of that spray foam, that great stuff, spray foam. And so the top was, I think it was about 12 feet wide and came apart in sections, and then we would transport it in our trailer. I think it was like 10 feet tall. And most stages in small clubs that I'm playing, you don't have a lot of clearance from the stage to the ceiling. So I'd have to set up in front of the stage and move the PA down there. It was just, and then some clubs, the pieces wouldn't necessarily even fit through the door to get in there. So I had to check ahead to make sure the clubs had, it was just ridiculous. So eventually I designed this one out of fabric, and this one's my favorite for sure. I can put it on an airplane. I've toured around Europe with it. It's great. And what I love about it too is it sways, like it kind of moves with me. So it dances along, so to speak.
There's two kinds of fun. There's things and there's stuff, and they just cannot get along. Which side do you want? Who loves their stuff? Our country has let stuff directed, and there we shall.
I wanted to ask you about the evolution of the band, or bands plural. We've had several different iterations. There was the moment toward the end of the 90s, early oddies, where you've got the three separate entities, the Danielson family, Brother Danielson, Danielson ship. And then more recently, the Danielson foil, which I'd like to talk about in a little bit. But like at that moment, when you split it into three entities, were they all simultaneously existing, more or less?
It all came out of the Danielson Alpha and Omega records. I was obsessed with the concept of the three and 3 points of the triangle pointing to each other and connected, but, a study of the Trinity, essentially. So I broke it out on those two records as these three forms of Danielson, one being just me alone.
Right.
And then the family with the cornucopia, horn of plenty as the symbol, my actual siblings and my dear friend from childhood. And so that was family. And then I like this idea of the third tier sonship celebrating relationship. And that's where the record Ships came from, was that I basically a study in that idea about relationships. And of course that includes family, but it's supposed to be kind of all-encompassing. I just wish I hadn't actually made the name of the band on the records different, because that became really confusing and not practical for
it could get a little hectic.
People trying to find my record. So,
Daniel, I just realized right now, too, that right after the Danielson, it was 3 albums by each of those projects in order, right? It was a family with Fetch the Compass Kids, and then Brother Danielson, and then that was a brother to son, and then Ships.
Yep.
And
Ships was billed as Danielson, and the idea with that was just like, okay, that's the common denominator here. I'm just going to stick with that moving forward. And ever since, yeah.
So how's Danielson business doing these days? Is it your main gig?
It's seasonal. It comes and goes. I do construction. I work on people's homes.
Oh, wow.
And I produce records for bands. I have a studio out in our backyard. So
just like the Christ. I mean, I don't know about the studio, but the construction.
Yeah. I guess so, yeah. It keeps you humbled, I guess. I don't know. It keeps you down to earth. When I mix it with the production or the composing or getting back to my own songs, when it's all kind of there, it's a nice balance. But if I'm not being creative, just incredibly frustrating for me. So trying to figure that out.
You've done you've done an amount anyway. I'm not totally clear on how much, because Daniel Smith is a name that is a little hard to Google.
Yeah.
You've done an amount of production and engineering for other artists as well. And when did that start happening for you?
I mean, let's see, early Danielson, I was producing my dad's records to help him out on that same 4-track.
I saw a mighty angel coming out of heaven, clothed with a cloud and a rainbow around his head. His face was like the sun, his feet like pillars of fire. He had a book there lying open in his hand.
I just really enjoy working with artists. I enjoy just sharing my studio experience with people I'm working with to help them feel more comfortable. be another set of ears in the room that could maybe give some advice that could be helpful. And I enjoy the technical side of setting up microphones and working with people. So I pretty much started in around 95, I guess, 94, with my dad, and then just friends that we would be hanging out with and helping them make records. And yeah, so been doing that off and on, and then became a pretty much full-time thing in around mid-2000s. Danielson was keeping me busy, and then I was producing records in between that. And that's been off and on ever since.
Well, if it's okay, I have a message from one of your former collaborators I'd like to play for you.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Let's give this a try. I put it on a cassette
Okay.
tape, so let's see how it sounds.
Okay.
Daniel is the most incredible vocal producer ever. I have two recording experiences that were completely opposite and just show you how amazing he is. The one was 1942, and that was recorded at his downstairs at his parents' house, I think. And oh my gosh, a bunch of Soul Junkers were in on that, and I think Sufjan was down playing some drums on that, and it was just a super incredible group playing the songs. But the funny thing is, we scheduled around a Philly set, a live set, and I just blew my voice out at that live set, and then had to do vocals for the whole EP. I think it was 6 songs, 5 songs, 6 songs, and my voice was just completely shot, and it was incredible. Daniel just was like, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. Just, it helped me just fly with my wounded wings, and hit notes I was never meant to hit, and made his job incredibly hard mixing it, but he found the tortured beauty in those notes. And then for 1960, we recorded that years later at the same spot at his parents' house, and that I was writing all my vocal parts a little on the low side, just all manageable. And I just remember him on the last song of the album just kind of saying maybe try and push it. Maybe just, and I sang it an octave higher than I was going to sing it. And it ended up being one of my favorite vocals on the whole album, So, yeah, he could coax the high, screechy, out of control stuff into orbit, and he could coax the tame stuff out of orbit. So it's one of the reasons Daniel's my favorite.
Glenn Galaxy. I love that guy.
Yeah, that 1942 EP that he's talking about, I remember I played a show with him in Portland, I want to say, and he passed that on to us as soon as it was, the debut. It just, me and my bandmates, it just blew our minds listening to that on the drive home.
Oh, that's so cool.
It just
I have great memories of that. That was one of those, just a couple days, all of us hanging in my parents' basement, and it was great memories of that.
And are you still recording in your folks' basement?
No, we live down the street, and I have a studio in the backyard, in a pole barn. So.
Oh, cool.
It's a proper recording studio now.
All right, that's where you are right now?
That's where I am right now, yeah.
Nice.
I love it out here, yeah.
Yeah, I had Soul Junk on a few years ago on this show, and then
oh, cool.
More recently, Hermit Thrushes, who you also did a record with.
Yeah, that's right.
And that album sounds killer too. Mystery Ocean.
Didn't Joyful Noise put that out?
They did, yeah.
In the early days, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I don't know if they're still active or not. Do you know?
They are. It's gone through some personnel changes over the years. And then another friend of the show, John Ringhofer, who connected us. He was in your touring band before, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was. For some of the Brother Danielson Tree concerts, he played bass and horns and was kind of the miscellaneous guy.
Yeah, when I toured the UK and Scandinavia in his band, and he still had his Danielson hat that he wore on your tour for that whole tour.
Oh, that's cool. Actually, he toured with us in Europe as well. I'm remembering now because we did the show in Scotland, and he got food poisoning, and so he was playing bass, and in the middle of the set, he's in the corner of my eye, I could see that he was like hunched down, and I thought he was really rocking out really hard, like really getting into it, but turns out he had food poisoning and he was getting sick. So he had to leave the stage for, I think, the rest of the set, actually.
Oh, poor John.
I know.
So you're coming up on 3 decades of this, dude.
I know. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it was 95 is when Prayer for Every Hour came out. So yeah, we're looking at, and yeah, 2025's what, 30 years.
So many shifts and changes over the years, but it always sounds like Danielson for the most part. Yeah. One other collab I'd like to address is you were commissioned to do music for the film Electric Jesus for the soundtrack.
Yep.
You want to just give the listener a quick rundown about what that is and your role in it?
Yeah, so my friend Chris White wrote and directed this film called Electric Jesus. It's based in South Carolina in 1986, and it's these youth group kids who love hair metal, but because they're only allowed to listen to Christian music, they're only allowed to play Christian hair metal. So that's what they come up with, and they have a band called 316. And they put this band together. And when Chris approached me with this idea, I thought, wouldn't it be really funny if the band was actually awesome? And if the music was great? And like, it shouldn't be.
Uh-huh.
But what if it is? I think that, first of all, it'd be much more interesting to work on and just to, be a part of that. And so my first assignment was, writing the 3 songs for that, the 3 original songs for that band 316. Commando for Christ is the hit. And then they have this love song called Girl, I Love Jesus Too. And then Barabbas is the hard rocker.
Yeah.
And so, so Chris had written these lyrics, these ridiculous lyrics, and I just liked them. I just wanted to keep the lyrics and write the best rock I could with those lyrics. And with, you have to follow the formulas of what hair metal is sounding like at the time with the, and with the guitar sound and the kind of high pitched squeal, which I'm very comfortable with. And then, and so I demoed those songs, and then the actor, Wyatt Lenhart, he came to the studio and tracked those vocals, and he just killed it. He just nailed it. So it was a great project, and it just grew and grew, so that I was also composing songs for the other bands in the film, a satanic death metal band called Satan's Clutch, and like a motorcycle band called Bloody Mass. And I ended up writing all the score. So I did all the music for it, yeah.
And, I think it's fair to say that the lyrics are a lot more maybe satirical or funny than actual Christian hair metal would have been.
Yeah, but what's I like about it is these kids, they're serious. Like they're not trying to be funny. They're just naive kids,
Yeah. Were you into like heavy metal shit when you were younger? Or?
Well, 1984, when Van Halen came out with 1984, I remember that album was huge. Now that's not metal, but that's hard rock. Uh-huh. And then, but it's around the same time, Def Leppard's Pyromania came out, and we were all obsessed with that record. And Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister and Rat.
You were on board.
Oh yeah, I loved it all. But then some traveling preacher came through the church and preached on the ills of rock and roll and all that nonsense.
Interguardian.
And so, So I wasn't allowed to listen to that stuff for a while. I was forced to listen to some Christian rock for a year. But then my dad was like, you don't have to listen to this stuff. It's not good. So then but then by that point, that was like 7th grade, 8th grade. And I discovered the local college radio station and heard like Husker Du and Minutemen. And, it's like, what is this?
Right.
And so then I was never really a heavy metal guy, but then I was a skateboard punk rocker from then on.
Gotcha.
New wave kid.
I don't know how much. I'm guessing you didn't have a whole lot to do with this stuff in the film Electric Jesus, but there were tons of Easter eggs for people like myself who primarily were exposed to Christian music. You got people portraying, quote unquote famous artists of that era. And posters on the walls and all this madness. But one thing that I caught that I wasn't sure a lot of people would is the body and iconic suit of Steve Taylor.
Yeah. That's his actual suit. That's the actual suit.
That was his actual suit from the live music videos or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
And just tying it together, you wound up doing a collaboration with Steve Taylor, who, for the unwitting listener, was sort of a alternative rock, satirical, a little more wry artist in the Christian rock scene, who was like influenced by like punk and new wave more than, say, what was on the Christian stations.
Yeah, for sure. He's a really smart person.
Let it slide to the other side, where the war is over. Let it slide to the other side, where the war is over. I thought I was so much further along. Water seeps through these red flags, right or wrong. With every risk comes returning reward. Shadows of light trails connecting the chords. Let it slide.
We recorded that in Chicago at Steve Albini's Electrical Audio. It was a dream come true, all just working with everybody and working with Steve, both Steves. The backstory, I think years ago I had met Steve Taylor at Cornerstone in a hotel parking lot or something, and introduced myself, and he actually knew who we were. I was very surprised, and he gave me his phone number. So I guess some years later, I saw that he was touring, and I just said, hey, if you're looking for an opener, I'd love to do some shows opening for you guys in my tree. And he said yes. So I did. And I got to know those guys on the road and just hang with them. And next thing I know, we're talking about collaborating. And I started writing some music with Peter Furler, and plays drums in that band. And yeah, we collaborated on some, I think it's 6 songs on that EP. I can't remember.
Yeah. They sound killer, man. And, Steve Albini, I mean, I know you've worked with him before.
Yeah. It was a great time. Yeah, it just happened. Steve Taylor, knew him from previous projects, and I knew him from Fetch the Compass Kids. He recorded that, and I did a couple singles with him. But yeah, he's one of my heroes. Kramer's one of my heroes. Steve Albini's one of my heroes, and I can't believe I get to work with him.
You're not supposed to meet your heroes. That's what people keep telling me, but I'm into it.
I'm into it because they're great people and they inspire me. And I call them friends. That's a bonus.
Yeah, that's what's up. Just imagining the guy from Big Black when he was putting those albums out, if he could see a time machine and be like, oh, you're going to be working with these people that are on this station here, on the gospel station.
Yeah, when we recorded at Electrical, Steve Albini showed us this Dove Award, which is a Christian Grammy, basically.
Right.
And I guess he won a Dove Award from, I think, for a band that was on Steve Taylor's label years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the Dove Award, it serves as a doorstop, so that's nice.
So who's in Danielson now?
Well, it'd be my siblings and my wife and I, and we have a new keyboard player that we're hopefully going to work with. But yeah, my siblings and my wife. Sometimes my kids get to jump on stage with us, nieces and nephews. Sometimes we play a festival down in Speaking of Jad Fair, his band Half Japanese has a festival down in Maryland every year. 24 bands, everybody plays 30 minutes, nobody gets paid. It's a wild event. But anyway, when we've done that in the past, we'll bring my nieces and nephews too, and so we'll have 20 people on stage. But the core is the 5 of us siblings and my wife, and like I said, we have a keyboard player we're thinking of working with. So yeah, so that would be it.
Is everybody still there in Jersey?
Well, my sister Rachel's in San Diego. She's been there for years. And we're in New Jersey. We're in South Jersey here, near where I grew up. But the rest of my siblings live in Philadelphia, which is only 30 minutes from here. So it's close.
What have you been digging on musically lately?
Yeah, I was just listening to some Big Blood. I don't know if you like the Big Blood stuff. I think they're cool. This guy Andy Schaff, who I think is from your area, maybe Seattle.
Oh yeah, that's just down the street, basically.
Yeah. Well, this week Tina Turner. I've been listening to a lot of old Tina Turner. Yeah, I mean, I listen to. So there's a radio station out of Jersey City called WFMU. And they have an app that you can listen to for free on your phone. Mm-hmm. And I listen to WFMU probably, I don't know, 30 hours a week. They have so many shows, and it's freeform radio, listener supported. It's the best. There's this rapper, Homeboy Sandman, that I really like a lot. I discovered him on the hip-hop show called Put the Needle on the Record. And he plays Homeboy Sandman a lot. So I got to see him live recently. That was really cool.
What's the Danielson fashion like these days?
Well, we're designing new uniforms for the next phase here, but my goal is to kind of streamline it. The color scheme is always, when we did the doctors and nurses, of course, it was white with the red hearts. Mm-hmm. And then ships was more of this kind of like service uniform blue.
Like a flight attendant?
Yeah, there was some scout in there. I mean, I was an Eagle Scout, and my brothers too. So actually all 3 of us, and I should say that I am an Eagle Scout because you're always an Eagle Scout once you're one. So
yeah,
I still am an Eagle Scout, but I've lost most of my knot tying skills.
You focused your energy in other places, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I still have the 8x10 that you guys put out where everybody's wearing a robe with a sash with the name on it, and everyone is holding up the middle finger.
Yeah, that was the press photo for the Try Danielson record.
Right.
And on that record, we had this is a good transition because the title of that song is Between the Lines of the Scout Signs. And the Scout sign, of course, is the first 3 fingers. So, and then the middle finger's the in between. I was having fun with the concept of redemption and body shame that is very common in the church. And, basically I was saying, our entire body is redeemed, including our middle finger, and let's set it free from whatever. It's very silly, but also I was trying to make a point that if our body is redeemed, that means all of it. So, yeah, when we would perform that song live, my sisters, who were ballet dancers, would dance these silly ballet moves with their middle fingers, waving their middle fingers to the audience.
Oh, man. My daughters, who are 6 and 8, just learned in the last month, A, what the F word is, and B, about the symbolism of the middle finger. My wife was dropping them off to school in the morning, and I guess was just waving her middle fingers up out the window, and screaming at her you gotta stop it. That means You can't do that. Like,
See, she's enjoying her redemption.
oh yeah, absolutely.
She's
I
free.
think I told her, I told her there's, all the fingers are good.
Exactly.
I'll have to share that song with them. I'm surprised I haven't yet.
Yeah.
I think they're going to love it. I have been playing your stuff around the house a lot in the last weeks. So
Oh, wow. Cool.
I think now I've heard everything. I think I've heard the entire discography finally,
Oh, wow.
including the singles. You did that funky song called Eagle. There's nothing else you ever did that was in that vein, really.
They came flying from far away. Now I'm under their spell. I love hearing the stories that they tell. They've seen places beyond my land, and they've found new horizons. They speak strangely, but now I understand. And I dream of an eagle. I dream I can spread my wings, flying high, high. I'm a bird in the sky.
That's an ABBA cover. That's an ABBA song.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I never
Yeah.
got super into ABBA. Is that something you got from your wife? She's Scandinavian, right?
Yeah,
Is that
she's
her
Norwegian,
idea?
but no, but I mean, I've loved ABBA for a long time, and that song in particular, I just thought we could give it a nice twist.
Yeah, I think you did it justice. I mean, I haven't heard the original, so I'm a
Yeah.
little biased. Yeah. Have you done very many other covers?
Oh boy.
Oh,
We
wait, you did
uh,
one with Sufjan recently. Daniel Johnston?
Yep, we did a Daniel Johnston cover called "Worried Shoes." I made a mistake and I never forgot. I tied knots in the laces of my worried shoes. And with every step that I take, I'd remember my mistake as I marched further and further away in my worried shoes. And we actually did that back in, I think, 2006, but it's just been reissued. And that album originally, when it came out, was just a fundraiser to help Daniel with his medical bills and things like that.
Yeah. Were you guys friends?
Yeah. I mean, I met him a few times, and he got to see me play in the tree. That made me happy.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
He liked the tree. Let's see, we did Go Tell It on the Mountain, I think, for some compilation that was, it's out there somewhere. I want to compile all those covers because I'm happy with a lot of them, so it would be nice to make them more easily available. Some are on 7 inches that were never digitized, that kind of stuff,
Right. Yeah, that'd be cool to get like an art. Well, 30th anniversary, man. That's the time.
I know.
That's the time to shoot for.
It is. That's the hope.
Speaking of which, you sent me a track called Goody that's as yet unreleased.
Actually, it was released on one of those 7 inches that I was talking about that
okay.
have just never been digitized. So only the couple hundred people that have those 7 inches. It's after Ships came out, I put out a 7-inch with Kill Rock Stars. I put out a 7-inch with Anticon, which is this kind of experimental hip hop label. And then Sounds Familiar put out a 7-inch. So there's 6 songs there that have yet to be digitized and made available that way. So I just thought I'd send you one. And Kramer produced that one, and I just like how dreamy that one is. My kids were, like, while I was recording my vocals, they were just asking to help me. So so I just recorded that. That's why they were asking.
I've been given the permissions with no condition.
so about the time the second album was around, maybe the third one, and I shared it with a guy I knew my age, another young teenage boy in my neighborhood, who seemed to be like, you know, kind of open-minded. He listened to the alternative rock station and stuff like that, but I played it for him, and he said, "Man, why does this guy sing like he got kicked in the nuts?"
Yeah, I've heard that before. When I recorded Prayer for Every Hour, like anytime I would sing in my falsetto, I would just imagine it's my heart singing. It's like a tiny heart singing.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's where that came from. And also just being interested in singers like Tiny Tim or Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons and
Sure, yeah.
the Bee Gees, like all these bands that I love, and a lot of soul music where there's a lot of falsetto and a lot of that stuff. I would kind of have two voices in that range. One would be like the tiny heart singing, which would be hopefully a sweeter sound, and then also like the tiny heart screaming, which would be a pretty deliberately awful sound. And so they were just different tools and they had purpose. And then I would use my stomach voice for other parts of the song, you know. My sisters and my wife would sing an octave lower than me, so that made it kind of an unusual where the male vocals, you know, an octave higher than the female vocals. And that's something that we do sometimes that I like. Not always, but I like the way that sounds as well.
Well, man, thank you so much for sharing with me today.
Oh, thank you, Markley.
Nobody else can do what you do, man. And I really appreciate that you keep on doing it. I mean, can you imagine not doing Danielson?
I can, because I haven't been, and I don't like it. So I need to get back to it because it makes me very happy. Actually, there's a really exciting thing I want to share with you that it's a club that the label Joyful Noise that I have worked with and continue to work with. They have this club called the Artist Enabler Club, and I've been chosen to be the next artist that they're enabling.
Okay.
And so
how does this
what
work?
that means... Yeah. So what that means is it's a subscription series that goes on for 15 months. There's a physical component to it, and then there's also just a digital component as well. But if you're a member, you'll get a short email from me with a little video, just kind of talking about a brand new demo that I just wrote, sharing briefly some words about it, but also you'll get that demo in digital format. And in the mail, you'll also get, if you subscribe to the physical component of this, you'll get a lathe cut, which is a hand cut 45 record, one-sided 45 record, clear vinyl, and on the back there's a silk screen that I drew, and there's a lathe cut of that demo. So there's going to be 15 of those, and I know it's really wild. And this is Carl's idea. This is something that he's done he did this for Lou Barlow, he did this for Y, and now I've been chosen to be the next artist for this club. So I'm beyond thrilled. It's very exciting, and it's already working. I already have completed 2 demos.
Oh, wow.
And the third one's due this Monday. So it's getting me to finish some things. It's going to provide some little bit of cash each month for me to be able to take a couple days off work and focus on making new art. And it's really an encouragement that I needed. And like I said, it's already gotten me to dust off the lyric books and the sketchbooks and all these pieces of music that I've had laying around for a long time. And I finished 2, and I got one more coming soon. And then in addition to that, in that email that I send out each month, again for 15 months, I'm going to be making limited edition woodcuts, a woodcut for each song that goes with each song, and they'll be available for sale. Just 33 of those, limited run. And that'll be kind of an additional handmade component to this. So I've always loved the handmade with the visual, with the audio. That's what Danielson's all about. And so this is a really, really fun thing to share and to get moving on. And then the additional thing is there's going to be a wooden box set that you can purchase with it has a wood burning engraved image on the front of a bunch of drawings that I did, and I'll hand sign the back of the box. And but like I said, just 333 of those, and once they're sold out, that's it. So
yeah, wow, man, what an honor to be commissioned for that. So you have to make an album now.
I have to, yeah. So there's going to be 15 demos, and then meanwhile, my brothers and sisters and my wife were already excited to just kind of start hashing these demos out in the band form and see what everybody brings to it, and we'll make studio recordings of all these songs as we're progressing through this year and a half. So, yeah, I am thrilled.
That's really exciting. I know it can be really hard to find time to do creative work. So just getting that fire burning is very exciting. I'm really looking forward to hearing it. And can we hear the first demo, and what's it called?
Well, the first demo is called Don't Push It.
That was the first track from Danielson's Artist Enabler Club project, and there's a fun video about it too. If you want to get all the details, there's a link to that on this episode's website. Thanks for listening to Low Profile. You can dig into the back catalog of episodes featuring artists you heard about on today's show, like Soul Junk, Hermit Thrushes, and Half-Handed Cloud. You'll find all those at lowprofilepodcast.com or wherever you stream podcasts. Much gratitude to Jack Habegger, who's doing the beautiful portraits of the artists featured this season. Next month, I'll be sharing my interview with Bonjo Iabingi Noah of African Head Charge. Thanks to Low Profile's in-kind sponsors, Rainy Day Records, Three Magnets Brewing Company, San Francisco Street Bakery, Old School Pizzeria, and Schwartz's Deli. This is Markley Morrison, signing off.